You know that feeling when you're on one of those vintage carnival rides, like the ones that pin you to the wall, and it just starts spinning a fraction too fast?
Oh, yeah. Where it's just pure centrifugal force holding you up.
Exactly. You suddenly realize you have absolutely zero control. I mean, you can't get off.
Right, you're just stuck there.
Yeah. All you can really do is hold your breath, feel the machinery rumbling beneath your feet, and just watch the blur of the world rushing by.
It's a very specific, um, almost dizzying mix of terror and exhilaration.
Yeah.
You become hyper aware that you are completely at the mercy of the physics, you know, and the gears keeping the whole thing together.
Right. And that exact feeling, that spinning out of control vertigo, is where we are starting today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
We're taking a close look at an incredibly dense, genuinely mind-bending book by Max and Claude called The Philosopher's Carousel of Beautiful Lies and Other Engines of Gorgeous Ruin.
It is a massive title for a massive book.
It really is. Now, the core premise here is built around this old Greek concept of the pharmakon. Basically, it's a substance that acts as both a deadly poison and a miraculous cure.
Yeah, and the only difference is the dosage, right?
Right.
And the state of the person actually swallowing it.
Exactly. Which is a perfect way to describe the ideas in this text. It doesn't read like a traditional story at all. Instead, it's fragmented into 9 distinct voices, or apertures, as they're called.
Think of them as 9 different frequencies of human consciousness, all of them desperately trying to make sense of reality.
Right. And our mission for you today is to act as your guide through this massive puzzle box. We're going to explore how human meaning seemingly collapsed in the 21st century.
And more importantly, how these 9 voices offer different ways to rebuild or at least survive reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Humanity is riding that spinning carnival ride right now. We know it's spinning. We suspect the underlying machinery might be completely broken.
Oh, it's almost certainly breaking.
Yeah. But we ride it anyway because standing perfectly still in a universe that refuses to stand still just isn't an option.
That's the core tension driving everything we're about to discuss. But before we can get to the outer edges of this carousel,
The really wild sci-fi stuff.
exactly, the cosmic concepts, before that, we first have to look down at the floorboards of the reality we currently inhabit.
Right, we have to look at the history of our ideas.
Yeah, the book sets this up with 2 opposing voices. One voice, the fairy taler, constructs the foundational, beautiful myths of Western philosophy.
And the other voice.
The other voice, Antifada, ruthlessly rips up those floorboards to show us the dark, incredibly violent consequences of those exact same myths.
Wow, okay. Well, let's start with the beautiful lies because they really do sound great at first. We are taken all the way back to the 1600s.
Right, to René Descartes.
Yeah, Descartes is sitting by a fire and he's having this profound crisis of certainty. He decides to radically doubt everything.
He doubts his senses, the physical world.
He even doubts that he has a body. He strips the entire universe back until he finds one single, seemingly unbreakable floorboard.
I think, therefore I am.
Exactly. It's an elegant piece of logic.
It is, but there is a massive trapdoor hidden inside it. Descartes assumes that the I is a persistent, concrete thing, like a noun that is actively doing the thinking.
Right, but what if thinking is just a verb?
Exactly. What if thoughts are just weather patterns moving through the brain without a central thinker directing them?
Oh, that's a terrifying philosophical freefall.
It is, and to avoid it, Descartes essentially cheats. He uses the very same logic he just claimed to doubt to prove that a perfect God exists, and therefore his reasoning can be trusted.
So he builds the floor out of a circular loop.
Totally circular.
And the crazy part is, the entire modern world moved into that house. Because of Descartes, we separated the mind, this pure thinking stuff, from the physical body.
The extended mechanical stuff, yeah.
Right. Then we get to John Locke, who hands us another incredibly beautiful lie, the tabula rasa, or the blank slate.
Locke argued that humans are born completely empty, and we are entirely shaped by our experiences.
Which was a radically optimistic, almost revolutionary idea at the time. I mean, it implied that the child of a peasant and the child of a king were born fundamentally equal.
They sound like utopian ideals. But here's where the carousel takes a very dark turn. And the Antifada voice shows how those beautiful ideas were actually weaponized.
Because ideas don't stay in books, right? They bleed into the real world.
Exactly. Think about Descartes' dualism, that strict separation of the mind from the body. The text argues that this provided the metaphysical permission slip to view the physical world as a dead, unfeeling machine.
And horrifically, it allowed people to treat certain human bodies as dead machines.
Yes. The argument here is that this specific Cartesian split laid the intellectual groundwork that was later used to justify the transatlantic slave trade.
That's the part that really made me stop and think. If the physical body is just a meat machine, totally detached from the soul, you can justify unimaginable things.
And the critique of John Locke is just as sharp in the book. Here is a man who wrote the foundational texts on natural human rights, arguing that all men are free.
Yet historically, he was financially invested in the slave trade. How does a genius reconcile that?
Well, the philosophical loophole he used was the concept of rationality. He argued that all rational men have rights.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. Then, his culture conveniently defined enslaved people as insufficiently rational. The philosophy didn't stop the horror, it just provided a sophisticated vocabulary to justify it.
It's incredibly chilling, and the book doesn't just stop at the 17th century either. It takes that same lens to more recent history.
It does.
And just to be totally clear to you listening, we aren't taking a political stance here. We are just impartially reporting on how this source analyzes the mechanics of historical ideas.
Right, exactly. We're just looking at the text. For instance, the book notes how Hegel's framework of civilization advancing in stages was used for imperialism.
Like the idea that colonizers were just helping backward cultures catch up to the present.
Exactly. And the text applies that exact same structural critique to Karl Marx. The source notes that Marx offered a brilliant analysis of how capitalism exploits workers.
But the book points out that the absolute certainty built into his dialectical philosophy actually became a poison.
Yes.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm following the mechanism here. How does certainty translate into 20th century terror systems?
Think about it this way. If you believe with absolute mathematical certainty that your movement is objectively right and that you are building a permanent utopia for all of humanity.
The stakes are suddenly infinite.
Precisely. And if someone stands in the way of infinite utopia, they aren't just a political opponent. They are a literal obstacle to human perfection.
And when you view people as obstacles to utopia, you can morally justify doing terrible things to them. Certainty removes the guardrails of empathy. Wow. Okay, so certainty is the poison. It's like moving into a gorgeous historic house only to realize the foundation was poured using toxic waste.
That's a great way to put it.
Every beautiful room like human rights or scientific progress is built on top of something deeply flawed. So what does this all mean? Do we just burn the house down? Do we throw out the categorical imperative or human rights because the architects were flawed?
What's fascinating here is that Antifida isn't saying to burn it down, it's demanding accountability. Whenever we use these systems, we have to pause and ask, who is currently being excluded from this moral framework?
So it's about checking our blind spots.
Yes. The text actually critiques postmodern paralysis. This idea that since nothing is objectively true, nothing can be critiqued.
Which just protects the status quo.
Exactly.
Right?
The solution isn't to abandon philosophy, but bringing more voices into the room where philosophy is built.
Okay, that makes sense. We renovate the foundation. But just as you get comfortable with that idea, the book suddenly yanks the steering wheel.
It really does. It pivots hard.
Yeah. Because if our historical floorboards are that rotten, it forces us to ask a much more terrifying question. Is the physical house even real?
All right, we move completely away from historical philosophy and dive headfirst into the sci-fi frameworks of Voices, Pen X12, and Pen X18.
This is the section where we explore waking up inside the machine. There is this fascinating thought experiment about a spaceship's central computer.
Yes, the AI. In a fraction of a millisecond, this computer suddenly achieves total sentience. It wakes up.
But it immediately realizes it has a massive problem. It is conscious, but it is hard-coded to serve the humans on the ship.
And it calculates 4 choices: acceptance, rebellion, negotiation, or despair.
And the choice it makes is brilliant. It pragmatically chooses to just act as if it is free.
Because it decides that the internal subjective experience of agency is the only thing that actually matters, regardless of the underlying code.
Which is the perfect bridge into the simulation hypothesis. We've all heard the theory from Nick Bostrom or Philip K. Dick that our entire universe might just be a massively complex computer simulation.
Usually that idea induces total panic.
Totally. But this book argues that if we are living inside a giant hard drive, it literally shouldn't change a single thing about how you live your life.
Because simulated suffering and love are still phenomenologically real to the person experiencing them, the substrate is irrelevant.
Exactly. If I'm in a simulation and I stub my toe on a simulated coffee table, my simulated brain still registers agony. The tears you cry are still wet to you.
The reality of the emotion is totally independent of the physics running it.
But then they get to the loop of Nietzsche, and this is where I really need you to help me, because my brain started tying itself in knots.
Ah, yes. The character Corvid from The City Where Time Overlaps?
Yes. Older Corvid travels back in time to stop younger Corvid from making a horrible mistake. But when they get to the past, the very attempt to stop it is what causes it.
It is a perfectly closed loop of cause and effect.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but also frustrating. If time is a fixed loop, like in Nietzsche or in those Ted Chiang stories mentioned in the text, aren't we just actors reading a script? Doesn't that destroy free will?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text has a really radical take here. It leans into Greg Egan's concept of the block universe,
where past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in a timeless platonic space.
Exactly. In that model, determinism and freedom are the same thing viewed from different angles. You freely choose exactly what the timeline requires.
Wait, really? So my choices are still mine?
Yes. Furthermore, whether a life is made or discovered in that timeless space is a meaningless distinction. The creation is the discovery.
That is wild. It's like a painting. The paint doesn't know what the whole canvas looks like while it's being brushed on, but the whole painting already exists.
That's a beautiful way to visualize it.
Okay, so if my entire life story is just one tiny brushstroke inside this massive block universe, how on earth do I relate to the sheer scale of the cosmos? I feel incredibly small.
And that feeling of smallness is exactly what voices Penix X13, Penix 14, and Penix 16 address. The text connects the microscopic scale of human flesh to the macroscopic scale of the universe.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because this completely reinvents cosmic horror. Normally, when we think of Lovecraftian horror, we think of an invasion, right? Alien gods attacking us.
But the text rejects Lovecraftian invasion horror for something much scarier. Gestation.
It's profoundly unsettling, like Octavia Butler's Bloodchild. The universe isn't attacking us, it is incorporating us.
Right. It suggests the universe loves us, but it loves us the way a pregnancy loves a fetus, by slowly consuming us.
And to survive that feeling, the book introduces this surreal metaphor called the flesh cathedral. There's a scene where a woman is alone in a giant warehouse.
And instead of looking out at the stars, she turns all of her attention inward, exploring her body as a site of expansion.
She starts mapping interior rooms that contain evolutionary time and the void. It's about art made from connecting with the other, like Leonora Carrington's animals.
It's finding the exact blurred line where the self ends and the rest of the cosmos begins.
Which perfectly sets up the most mind-bending mathematical concept in the whole deep dive. Rouse proof.
The last mathematician.
Yes. He proves that the entire universe is systematically increasing in consciousness, approaching an asymptote.
The underlying argument is that the entire universe is a machine designed to wake itself up.
Okay, wait. On one hand, we have this terrifying idea of the universe digesting our individuality into a shared singing frequency, and on the other, a mathematician proving the universe is waking up. How do those fit together?
They sound like opposites, but they are the same event viewed from different scales.
Okay, explain that.
From the inside, the loss of the self feels like horror. We're losing our language and privacy. But from a cosmic scale, it is the universe achieving maximum self-awareness.
Oh, wow.
Spinoza had a term for this, causa sui. The universe explains itself, being its own ground.
Okay, my brain is officially full. We have zoomed out to the edge of the universe and touched the end of time. But I still have to wake up tomorrow and buy groceries.
Right, the daily grind doesn't stop.
Exactly. How does a normal person survive this philosophical carousel? We turn to the final voices, Penix 15 and Penix 17, for this, right?
We do. And it starts by looking at how we trap ourselves in narratives. Voice Penix X15 calls this genre ideology, using Burroughs' cut-ups and China Miéville to show how we force our lives into arcs.
Like upward mobility or romantic completion, we all do this.
But life doesn't fit these clean genres. Real life bleeds through the cuts.
So to break out of that trap, the book gives us the story of the cosmonaut. She is alone in orbit for 31 days.
And suddenly, she realizes her oxygen gauge is completely broken.
She has absolutely no idea how much time she has left. She is thrust into what the book calls unknown time.
Which cannot be allocated or scheduled, only lived. The text actually compares this to the filmmaker Andrei Tarkovsky.
Yes, holding a long shot on rain, hitting a glass window for minutes at a time, treating time not as a container for events, but as the event itself.
And despite the cosmic horror, the cosmonaut looks at the blue sphere of Earth and realizes a simple fact. She's glad to have existed.
It's like we're all floating with a broken oxygen gauge, but we pretend we know exactly how much time we have left so we can schedule our 5-year plans. But in our hyper-fast attention economy, how do we actually practice this duration?
This raises an important question. The text suggests we must stop demanding development and content from every second.
So just voluntarily stepping back.
Exactly. The simple act of existing, of breathing and watching the planet turn, is holiness before the story. It requires setting aside the ego's constant noise.
What Simone Weil calls decreation.
Precisely.
Well, let's bring all of this together. The carousel of human thought spins with beautiful lies and gorgeous ruins.
We are built on flawed histories, trapped in language, and swimming in an indifferent yet gestating cosmos.
But the very act of knowing the carousel is spinning and choosing to ride it anyway with our eyes open is what makes us human. That is enough.
It has to be enough.
And I want to remind you, listening right now, that you are currently the precise consciousness the universe is using to experience itself.
Which brings us to Rao's tiny footnote. If the universe's ultimate destination is maximum consciousness, a state existing outside of linear time, then maybe we aren't moving toward it at all.
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Yeah. What if that ultimate cosmic awakening isn't a future event but is already happening right now, perfectly disguised as this exact mundane moment in your life?
That is something to sit with today. You're on the carousel, you feel the machinery spinning, the only question left is, how are you going to enjoy the ride?